The Nature of Personal Reality, a Seth book by Jane Roberts, read by Martin John. Part 2, the next chapter, 11. Session 643, February 26, 1973, 9:20 p.m. Monday. Good evening. Dictation. Today, Rupert received a call from a young woman I will name Andrea. She is a lovely young blonde. I would like to use this instance as an excellent example of the ways in which conscious beliefs affect your feelings and behavior. Andrea is in her early 30s, divorced, with 3 children. She called to tell Rupert that she had lost her job this morning, but more than this, that she was involved in a week of very negative circumstances and emotional encounters. A young man she had been seeing began to avoid her. A salesman placed her in what seemed to be a very humiliating situation and yelled at her in front of a crowd of people. All of her other encounters of late had seemed to follow the same pattern. Finally, she became ill and emotionally overwrought. She stayed home from work, and that situation culminated in the loss of her job. She told Rupert that she felt herself to be an inferior person, unable to cope, an individual who was not able to hold her own with her co-workers or the world at large. She had carried those beliefs, of course, throughout that period of time, and they were expressed unconsciously through her body, through gestures, expressions, tones of voice. The whole physical self expected rebuffs. The events of those days, whatever they were, would be interpreted in the light of that mental set. All of the available data coming into the organism would be sifted, weighed, and valued in a precise search for the material that would give physical emphasis to those beliefs. Information or events running counter would be ignored to a large degree, or distorted in such a fashion that they would be made to fit in with what the mind said was reality. Conscious beliefs focus your attention, channel it, and direct your energy so that you can swiftly bring the ideas into your physical experience. They also act as blinders, throwing aside data that cannot be assimilated while preserving the integrity of the beliefs. So our Andrea did not see, or ignored, the smiles that came her way, or the encouragement, and in some cases she even perceived some potentially beneficial events as negative. These then were used to further reinforce the belief in her own inferiority. Over the phone, Rupert reminded Andrea of her own basic uniqueness, and also of the fact that she was creating her reality through beliefs. Rupert reinforced other ideas that Andrea had momentarily forgotten. The fact, among others, of her true worth, and because Rupert believed in Andrea's worth, and because Andrea knew it, this more positive belief rose up to shove the others aside. During the day, Andrea was able to look at both beliefs and see them as opposing ideas that she had held about herself. She believed she was unique and good, and also that she was inferior and bad. At various times, one belief would color her experience nearly to the exclusion of the other. Just before this session, Andrea called back. She realized that she had indeed set up the situation by not dealing honestly with her own conscious ideas. She had wanted to leave her job for another one, but was afraid of taking the step. So she created circumstances in which the decision was seemingly taken out of her hands. it would appear as if she were the victim of unfeeling coworkers, jealous and misunderstanding, and a boss who would not stand up for her. Now she understood that she was not a victim, but the originator of those conditions. During the time involved, her feelings faithfully mirrored her conscious beliefs. She was lost in self-pity and self-condemnation. These brought about the weakened body state. Speaking to her the second time, Rupert gave Andrea excellent advice, explaining the way in which such feelings can be handled to advantage. In his or her own way, each reader can easily utilize the method. Rupert advised Andrea to accept the validity of such feelings as feelings, not to inhibit them, but to follow their flow with the understanding that they are feelings about reality. As themselves, they are real. They express emotional reactions to beliefs. The next time Andrea feels inadequate, for example, she is to actively experience that feeling, realizing that even though she feels inferior, this does not mean that she is inferior. She is to say, "I feel inferior," and at the same time to understand that the feeling is not a statement of fact, but of emotion. A different kind of validity is involved. Experiencing your emotions as such is not the same as accepting them as statements of fact about your own existence. Andrea is then supposed to ask, "Why do I feel so inferior?" If you deny the validity of the emotion itself and pretend it away, then you will never be led to question the beliefs behind it. At this point, Andrea believes that her life must be difficult. She's been told often that a woman without a man is in a very difficult situation, particularly a woman with children. She believes that a new mate will be almost impossible to find. She has been informed that children need a father, and feels at the same time that no man wants to become involved with a woman with children. In her 30s, it seems to her that youth is fast fleeting, and in line with her beliefs, she cannot see a woman who is much older being desirable. So her beliefs put her in a state of crisis. Change them, and no crisis exists. The body would then cease reacting to such stress, and almost immediately the exterior situation itself would be altered. At the same time, all beliefs are communicated to others, not only through quite unconscious bodily mechanisms, but telepathically. You will always try to correlate your ideas with exterior experience. All the abilities of the inner self will be brought to bear to materialize the image of your beliefs, regardless of what they ought to be. The proper emotions will be generated, bringing about those body states that exist in your conscious mind. Now, you may take a break. This is a way of assisting the young woman involved, and others too. Show her this session. There will be no problem. The situation is one in which many young women are involved, and this material can help them solve dilemmas of which they may have been unaware previously. They do not know a Rupert, but they can learn through this book. I've used Andrea because so many typical Western beliefs coincide in her reality. The idea that aging is disastrous, that women are relatively powerless without a man beside them, that life is, practically speaking, highly difficult while it should be ideally simple. All these ideas obtain their charge from a basic belief in powerlessness of the conscious self to form and regulate its experience. Luckily, Andrea is working with her own system of beliefs. Presently, however, while she tells herself that age does not matter, she still believes that her desirability as a woman decreases with the passage of each day. So she feels and acts less attractive. When that belief holds sway, she is fortunate enough to be able to check her physical experience against her beliefs and astute enough to see areas in which she has made great advances. But let us look at some of those beliefs and apply them to others generally. Often, of course, those who try the hardest to be good do so because they fear for their basic worth. And those who speak of having youthful minds and bodies do so because they are so terrified of age. In the same way, many who shout about independence are afraid that they are basically helpless. In most instances, these opposing beliefs are held quite consciously, but kept apart from each other. Therefore, they are not reconciled. Since your feelings follow your beliefs, various groups of them will appear to be senseless at times if you do not allow them free connection with opposing ideas that you may also hold. A person may seem to be very open and responsive. Reading this book, for example, any reader might say, "My trouble is that I'm too emotional." Yet, on some self-analysis, almost all will find areas in which emotions are expressed only to a certain point. They are not followed through. No feeling brings you to a dead end. It is in motion, and that always leads into another feeling. As it flows, it alters your entire physical condition, and that interchange is meant to be consciously accepted. Your emotions will always lead you into a realization of your beliefs if you do not impede them. Emotional states are always impetuses for action, meant to be physically expressed. Each has a basis in natural aggression. The connections between creativity and aggression have never been understood in your society. A misunderstanding of true aggression can lead into fear of all emotion and cause you to cut yourself off from one of nature's best therapies. Natural aggression provides the charge for all creativity. Now, reading this, many readers will be taken back, for they believe that love is the impetus and that love is opposed to aggression. There is no such artificial division. Natural aggression is the creative loving thrust forward, the way in which love is activated, the fuel through whose agency love propels itself. Aggression, in the most basic terms, has nothing to do with physical violence as you think of it, but with the force through which love is perpetuated and creatively renewed. When you think in other terms, then you fall into distorted views in which power is assigned to negative elements and seen as threatening, wrong, or even given demonic connotations. In contrast, good is seen as weak, powerless, passive, and in great need of defense. You will be afraid of any powerful emotion, therefore, frightened of the dimensions of your own actuality, and to a large extent be led to run away from an acceptance of the power and energy of your own being. You will be forced to dilute your own experience. Such beliefs have a strong depressing characteristic that can lead you to shut down powerful feelings by immediately considering them negative. You will automatically begin to inhibit any stimulus that might bring about forceful emotions, and so deny yourself needed feedback. You're at the mercy of your emotions only when you fear them. They are the motion of your being. They go hand in hand with your intellect. But when you are unaware of the contents of your conscious mind and not fair with your emotions, you can run into difficulty. End session. Peace, light, and love. Aloha.